most people may not want to bodybuild, but they certainly want certain attributes,
Yes.
which is, the leanness,
Correct.
the muscle tone. And so for people who want to be really healthy, so what were some of the major things you learned in the process of optimizing yourself? And I do want to ask you about the vegetarian diet. So
Sure.
are you still a vegetarian?
Yeah, I don't really like labels so much, but I haven't eaten any flesh since 2001.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So of course there's a
So
whole controversy about,
yes,
vegetarian versus animal protein. Every side has their, so we'll talk about
yeah,
that. But
yeah.
let's talk about your hacks.
Well, first because I'm gonna put this also into the longevity profile.
Okay.
So if you're looking at longevity outcomes, muscle mass is one of the big factors for determining that you live long and live strong. So achieving, I like Peter Attia's model that he applies to endurance. I think it's also applicable in muscle mass. And I'm actually trying to get some data on this specifically. This is an inference I'm going to leverage. So it's not, I don't have this data to support it as of yet, but I don't know if anyone's done it. You want to look at the upper 2.5 percentile within your age category of lean body mass, cardiovascular health, bone density, and range of motion. That's what's going to let you allow healthy, long, and strong. So early on, when you have optimal hormonal patterns, that's when you want to put as much muscle mass onto your body, because that's going to diminish over time. And if that's most people, even a little bit of training will produce really positive outcomes, even if they've never trained before. So definitely need to be doing weight training. That is a must. I would suggest you would want to distribute your muscle building efforts to anywhere, depending on your age profile, between 3 to 5 times per week would be optimal for most people. Usually as you get older, 6 times is probably not as conducive unless you're really hyper focusing on your recovery. And 2 is oftentimes not sufficient enough. 2 is enough usually to maintain it, not enough to really build it.
You think 7 is too much? Because I actually do Pilates every day. I'm wondering, is 7 too much?
Yeah, I believe so. And Pilates is a different type. Pilates is based on time under tension and range of motion. So I think there are other benefits that you are going than, say, straight resistance training. Resistance training, like you would set out in a bodybuilding program, frankly, is the only type of exercise that can shape your body in a way that you would like. In other words, if you're building a statue, you would put some clay on the statue and carve out your shoulders like this and your butt like this and your arms like this. Bodybuilding is using exercise to create the stimulation in the nervous system and the correlation muscles that are being trained. And the nutrition is feeding those muscles, and the recovery factors that you are activating through biohacking are going to determine how quickly you recover between sessions, therefore how quickly you can produce results over the long term. So the higher the intensity and the more volume that you do, the more attention is going to need to be put towards your recovery. And that typically diminishes as you age. That's why you don't see 60-year-old Olympic champions or very often. And there are guys, I'll give a case in point. Tom Brady, who's 45 and probably one of the more famous athletes in the world, has been leveraging biohacking technology for a great part of maybe the last 20 years of his career, and has extended the paradigm of what's possible as a middle-aged person. And he's very meticulous about his diet. He's very meticulous about how his training and his range of motion specific to the position that he has. And it worked. And so he set a standard that I think will be echoed by many athletes to come, and also the general public. So that's first thing. Second thing is cardiovascular health. And that's not an area that the good news is cardiovascular health you can improve significantly in middle age. It's not as dependent on hormone profile as muscle building. So if you're having trouble muscle building, you'll hit a point, especially if you're getting started at middle age, you may need hormonal augmentation. Even though I'm a natural bodybuilder, I'm not against that. I'm just always trying to kick that can as far down the line as I can. Once you cross over that hurdle, you're pretty much in that mode, and you want to keep your powder dry, I like to say, as you extend your life.
Okay.
And then in your exercise program, you want to be concentrating on range of motion so that you can retain flexibility. Now, I've had very good flexibility in my career relative to my sport without a whole lot of attention on it because of properly developed training programs. But now, over the last few years, I've noticed, I'm losing range of motion in key exercises, build up and calcification of tissues. And so I've now added specific flexibility exercise on a daily basis. And I do way more cardiovascular now than I've ever done in my life, because that's going to, I want to hit that state, go to that 2.5 percentile that Atia talks about, because the healthy outcomes are great. And he talks about strength and cardiovascular. So you always want to look
What's
at
the ideal frequency for the cardiovascular exercises?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll defer to Dr. Atia. He suggests 4 times per week with 1 high intensity session. So for like level 2, what they call level 2, which is it's a fairly easy bike pace. You can talk, you may not want to, but it's relatively pleasant, or it's a light jog where you can carry on a conversation if you wanted to. You might not want to. It's like a little bit of effort, but it's not too much. And then 1 high intensity session per week, which he uses the attack bike, I believe 5 4-minute high intensity pushes with 4-minute breaks in between.
Yeah.
That's his recommendation. And he's at the top of the food chain as far as that side of things. And I think he's well researched.
Question about that. Certain things can simulate exercise, right? Like sauna. Because, people's heart rate go up, blood sugar level go up, as if your body's going through an exercise. So could you substitute those with some of the cardiovascular exercises?
Well, I think you'll get biochemical responses that would, if you're looking from a biochemical outcome, you might get biochemical markers that would be positive towards that. And I think that's where a lot of the medical science leans a little too heavy into. They're so concerned about what is the biochemical markers, because that's what they're tracking. But let me tell you, you put that sauna person that's got to run down the street for their life, they're not going to make it to the person that's been running 4 times a week. Okay. And so there's a practical element that I think also needs to be, you got to pull the lab geeks out of the lab and get them on the bike, or get them on the weights, or get them whatever. So I think sometimes research heavy, that's my pet peeve. The eggheads that's got all the brains, they overthink things. And they get too hyper focused in that thing and can't step back and, like, wait a second, okay, the chemistry looks good, but is the output there? You're not going to get big, say you're just not going to be able to run a marathon because you do saunas every day.
Okay. All right.
Right. Not saying that you could, not saying that you should, but I'm just saying there's a practical side to things.
Right.
And I'm definitely a big advocate of saunas. I have 2 different types in my house. So, yeah, I think both.
Okay. So real cardiovascular by moving your body, and some flexibility training, and then weight training. And there's a 4th one, right?
Bone density.
Yes.
So bone density and some of that weight training is going to also improve bone density. So weight training covers, you can also get cardiovascular benefit from weight training if you decide to do different styles. So if you were to get more bang for your buck, I would say weight training would outperform virtually everything out there on the market, and it's the least used one. So one of the, so I think that, and largely in part because there's a perception out there, particularly among the population, oh, I don't want to get too big and look like a bodybuilder. Believe me, it's way harder than that. Great results for 3 to 6 months, and then it gets really hard after that. But that 3 to 6 months could change your outcomes long-term radically.
Okay. So these are the 4 things that you can enhance.
Well, those are the markers, yeah, for longevity.
For
Yeah.
longevity. Okay. So you do all these,
Yeah.
and then I'm sure you do, plenty of other things.
Yes.
So,
Well, see, that's not enough.
Mhm.
That's just the physical side of it,
I see.
right? So one of the things that we talk about when I have a course that I give away on my website called the Awesome Health Formula, where I literally set aside, it's a 12-week course where we start implementing all of these lifestyle components that will lead to healthy outcomes. So I would say, proper breathing, proper hydration, and daily exercise are non-negotiable because we live in a technologically advanced world that we don't breathe properly, and detoxification of the breath. We drink everything but great water. We need great water to maintain hydration levels, which everything functions off. And because of the technical innovation, we don't exercise. Like living, you didn't have to think about exercise for most of human civilization. It's only the last 100 years, right? Technology has actually had a productive effect on the physical requirements of living healthy and living strong. So that's why those things are non-negotiable. And then we get into the other stuff. Then we get into we get into the kind of stuff that you do, let's look at people's DNA and let's start offsetting what's your cardiovascular risk and what your profiles for diabetes and cancer and things like that, and building a dietary lifestyle around that.